Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to Season 8, Week 3 of the Lyons 10 Quiz League. We are back after a solid Week 2. If you take a look at the standings, I finished in 6th place, which you can, just about see. So yeah, it was fine. It wasn't the worst week, wasn't the best week. I finished 2nd in Week 1, so a little bit down from last week, but again, there were a couple of tough quizzes, so hopefully Week 3 goes decently well as well. We don't have any standings or anything to look at so far, but I'm going to get straight into this with quiz number 1. Wait a second. I didn't put my info into the quizzes yet. I'll be right back. All right, we are here for quiz number 1. First of all, general knowledge quiz written by Benny. The picture below lists some of the many times that British rappers have said they were on the wing, like what soccer player who retired in 2023, leads his country in matches played and goals scored, and was part of 5 Champions League winning teams. So I was thinking, okay, like, who's a player who won Champions League 5 times? What's a team that won the Champions League 5 times? That's not something that happens very much. My first thought was Real Madrid, because they just win the Champions League more than anyone else. And I was like, who's a player who retired recently that British rappers would be singing about? Probably Gareth Bale, surely. And of course, he is a winger. He plays for Wales, so it makes sense he would be the all-time leader. And yeah, won the Champions League 5 times. I think, at least. I mean, it makes sense. Question 2. Has anybody here seen My Old Friend Abraham? Can you tell me where he's gone? The song Abraham, Martin, and John, which mourns the loss of several social reformers, was first recorded by an artist with what one-word stage name? This is also the last name of the artist behind the best-selling song ever made by a Canadian. So this one is bugging me because it feels like I should know this. Like, what's the best-selling song ever made by a Canadian? Like, why don't I know that? I don't know, but I can't really think of it. I mean, I thought of Leonard Cohen. Like, could it be Hallelujah? Could it be Justin Bieber? Could it be Bryan Adams? Like, I'm just thinking of famous Canadian artists, but I can't think of one that really makes much sense in terms of, like, if this was a one word name of a different artist. Like, they all just seem, I don't know, weird, to be honest. Um, I'm gonna say Adams, like Bryan Adams, if the best selling song is like Summer of '69 or Heaven or something. But I don't feel very good about this answer, but I've been thinking about it for a while and I just can't think of it, to be honest. So yeah, Adams it is, I guess. Question 3. Redacted. He could not keep all his kings supplied with sleep. Whose name has been redacted in this nonsense lyric by the Birds, taken from a Bob Dylan demo? This man's empire did not have kings, but a decentralized structure. It was more disparate when it was divided up by this man's sons, Jochi, Chagatai, Ogode, and Tolui. I don't know, but like, I feel like Genghis Khan is probably the best guess here because these names sound Mongolian to me, and I don't know, empire that doesn't have kings but khans and like Mongolian names. I mean, maybe it's like Kublai Khan or something, but I feel like I have to say Genghis Khan. Question 4. This line from battle rapper Danny Myers references Odd Job, the henchman for which character? In the film in which he appears, Bond asks him, "Do you expect me to talk?" To which this man cheerfully replies, "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die." Um, don't know. There are a lot of Bond villains. I'm going to say Dr. No, which maybe is a bad idea because No is here, although that might also be the clue. Like, maybe it's all he says no, so he's Dr. No. But I know that that's a Bond villain. I also thought of like Goldfinger, for example, but I think he appears in multiple films. Like, this is singular film, so I feel like I go with Dr. No. But I don't know anything about Bond movies. I've never seen, I guess I think I saw Skyfall and Spectre, but other than that, I haven't seen one, so I don't really know anything about James Bond. Question 5, he didn't even falter, didn't look back once, did you? So Samson blamed Delilah, but given half the chance, I would have made him weaker too. So Samson was a powerful warrior who took, until Delilah took what action, robbing him of his strength. This is one of the few Bible stories I can actually recall, but I believe what she did was she cut his hair. That's kind of famously how he lost his strength. Was that, yeah, she cut his hair. Question 6. No, they never taught us what was real. Iron and coke, redacted steel. What chemical element has been redacted in this lyric from Billy Joel's Allentown? Aren't you glad we didn't start the fire? Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. Stainless steel consists of iron, carbon, in this element. I also appreciate that you gave me a clue that was gettable without just knowing the lyrics, because I don't know the lyrics to this song either. But stainless steel, I believe, is iron, carbon, and chromium. Chromium is just, I don't know, it's an element that I associate with steel and stainless steel. So chromium steel. I think it fits pretty well with the lyrics, so I figure that is going to be the answer. As for what to enhance, honestly, I don't know. Like, Gareth Bale, I mean, if you don't follow soccer, you're not going to get it. But if you do, it's probably quite easy. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword on that one. Genghis Khan, I feel like, is guessable, so I'm not sure I want to go with that one. Dr. No is probably wrong. Cutting his hair, that feels... If I know it, then everyone's going to know it. This similarly feels fairly gettable. I think I go with number one. This could be a really bad mistake. Like, this could have an 80% get rate for all I know. Oh, Dion. And it is Goldfinger. Are you serious? Are you kidding me, dude? Okay. It's 4 out of 6. It's not that bad. Bro, I thought Goldfinger was like a recurring villain. Like, I feel like he's the most famous Bond villain, at least in my mind. So I thought that he was more of a character who appears in multiple things. But it said the film in which he appears. So I was like, I know that there's a film called Goldfinger, but I was like, I'm not convinced that that's the only one. So I went ahead and guessed another one, and I don't know. I should have taken the fact that it said no in his answer to mean that it's not Dr. No, but yeah, just kind of messed that one up. That's a bit unfortunate. Quiz 2. This is a secret theme quiz by Looney. It's very fun, and I like secret theme quizzes because you can get questions you don't know the answer to if you know the theme. So I'm going to start with question 3 with that in mind. First of all, a grotesque 2015 viral video of a certain object being pulled out of a sea turtle's nose inspired dozens of cities to implement bans on what specific items, and using the hashtags stop sucking. Like, the first thing that came to mind for this was like plastic straws, material and object required, and I figured this just makes too much sense. I mean, it is surely right because I figured out the theme, but anyway, plastic straws are just notably kind of a thing that have a lot of, I don't know, stigma around it, and it's just, yeah, the things that are, I mean, people are trying to move away from them for various reasons, environmental, etc. So it makes sense that a plastic straw could have gotten stuck in a turtle's nose. Question 4. In a French folktale, what character gives his wife a set of keys to his castle but instructs her not to open a specific door, which she does anyway, only to find the horrifying bodies of his ex-wives? That tale was developed into Angela Carter's short story selection, The Bloody Chamber, and an opera by Bela Bartok, who made this character a duke. So this is La Barbe Bleue, or Bluebeard. This is a story that I read in like French classes kind of growing up when I was learning French. I don't know how well known this is. I just kind of know this because it's like well, whatever. Isn't there like, doesn't she like get blood on her hands that she can't get off or something? Anyway, it's a story that I read before. So, and I think Duke Bluebeard's castle or something is the Bartok thing. So this is definitely Bluebeard. Number 5, the devices that assist investigations into aviation accidents are officially called flight recorders, but are commonly known as black boxes, despite the fact that they are usually painted orange. This is kind of the famous thing. It was like whatever it was, the flight that went down, the like Malaysian Airlines flight or whatever. I remember there was a lot of talk about like the black box. So I don't really have much of a sense for what it is or what it does, but I know that it's a thing that they refer to when plane crashes happen. Name the actress whose speech after winning the Oscar for Best Actress, including the following line. This moment is for Dorothy Dandridge, Lena Horne, etc. It's for the women that stand beside me. Her name could be said to be this quiz's theme. So I went back wondering, okay, what is the theme here? Plastic straws, Bluebeard, black box. That's what I had. And it took me a little bit because I was just trying to, I don't know, I was trying to piece this together. I was like, there's not much going on. I mean, Bluebeard, black box, like those are colors, but then number 3 clearly has no colors in it. So like, what's going on? Is it like red straws or something? But it does say, material. Anyway, so I started trying to put words before and after words because, I don't know, there's a bar trivia that I've been going to where like there's very often a theme that's just like, here are some words. If you put a word before or after them, you make phrases, that kind of thing. So I kind of just started trying to do that and see what happened. And when I got to the word straw or straws, I was like, what's something that could go before straw? What's something that could go after straw? And I realized strawberry is definitely a thing, obviously. And then I was like, wait a second, blueberry, blackberry. So like we're doing berries here. So this presumably is going to be Halle Berry, which I couldn't even have told you that she won Best Actress, but it makes sense. And like, yeah, I mean, surely, right? I think this just makes perfect sense. So I was like, okay, if we're doing berries, then let me see if I can figure out what's going on in the first two questions. Number one, the Hughes H-4 Hercules, a plane commissioned in 1947 by Howard Hughes, has what rhyming nickname that references a type of wood and an animal? So I started trying to go through berries in my head. I'm like lingonberry and marionberry and boysenberry, whatever else, just trying to think of, okay, what's a word that could be in a phrase that is also the name of a berry. Um, and I thought of gooseberry, and I'm pretty sure now that I think of it, I mean, of course, I'm trying to find one that's like a type of wood and an animal. Goose is obviously an animal, and I think now that I think of it, that spruce goose is a thing. Like, this is a phrase that I've heard before. If you asked me what this was, I wouldn't have been able to tell you, but I think I've heard this phrase before, and the type of wood, spruce is a tree, so it obviously makes sense. So I'm pretty sure, rhyming nickname with goose in it. I mean, I'm assuming that it does have goose in it. I mean, I don't know, but I think it just makes too much sense to be wrong. I feel like, although I might be wrong. It could be something else, but this feels way too good. Once I thought of it, I was like, it's got to be this. And finally, what video game series is set in the continent of Tamriel, whose 9 provinces include Elsewhere, Hammerfell, Morrowind, and Valenwood? I don't know what's going on here, but again, I was trying to think of berries, and I thought of elderberry, and I'm pretty sure there's a series of video games called The Elder Scrolls. I guess it's The Elder Scrolls, probably. But again, this is just a thing, and I know it has a couple games in it, like Skyrim, for example, I think is one of them. I don't know much about them. I've never played them, but I know that this is a series of games. And I'm like, yeah, elderberry, that's certainly a thing. So, yeah, kind of fun how you can back solve that by just kind of thinking of berries, even if you don't know the answers to these questions cold. It makes me really enjoy that kind of question, or that kind of quiz, rather. Honestly, do I enhance spruce goose here? Because, like, or I don't know. The question becomes like, do you enhance the theme one? Like, how many people are going to figure out the theme, right? And given the theme, how many people are going to be able to back solve questions like Bluebeard or Spruce Goose? I feel like Bluebeard is harder because it's like, even if you know the theme, you're probably not going to be able to get to this if you don't know the actual folktale. So maybe that makes it harder. Um, Spruce Goose might be wrong. I mean, I feel like surely it's right, but I don't know. Like, Elder Scrolls, that's probably a thing that people are just gonna know. I don't know. I just don't know how easy or hard the theme is, to be quite honest. Is the play just to enhance the theme question and just call it a day? Like, I don't know. I just have no idea how easy or hard this theme is actually going to be. I feel like like Black Box is probably the easiest, but get there using just that. I don't know. Honestly, I think I'm enhancing 6. It just feels like maybe the safest play here. And maybe the theme's super easy and I'm doing the wrong thing, but yeah, I don't know which ones it wants me to click. Like, it's such nonsense. These silly captchas. Okay, Halle Berry, yes, Black Boxes, Bluebeard, Plastic Straws, Elder Scrolls, Spruce Goose. Let's go. Okay, got them all. That was a very fun quiz, and it's really fun being able to figure that out, even when you don't feel like you're going to figure it out initially. So that is a job well done, and we will head to quiz number 3, which is pop culture. First, the Marilyn Monroe played character Paula de Beauvois hated wearing her much-needed glasses around men in the 1953 film How to Marry a Blank. The blank is filled with what type of person, which also is the last word of a 2008 film where some guy wears glasses, etc., host of a game show. I don't know what's going on here. I mean, I feel like there are probably clues in here that I'm not picking up on, but I just kind of don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know if the game show has anything to do with it or whatever, but I thought of it for a little bit and I can't think of anything, so I'm just going to say, like, celebrity. How to Marry a Celebrity sounds like it could be a title, and to be honest, I just don't really know what's going on. Question 2, American gymnast Steven Nedorosik became an international sensation at the 2024 Olympics after his routine in what event led to the American team to a bronze medal, drew comparison to Superman, etc. This is the pommel horse. He's the guy who just famously did the pommel horse, which is that thing in gymnastics where you just like spin around the thing. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about, or you don't. But yeah, this is just what it was. He kind of got a lot of attention when that happened. Question 3, these sunglasses were made by what company? Probably Versace, because we have a Medusa head on the side. So, I mean, that's just the logo of that. It's one of the like 5 fashion logos that I know, but it's a fashion question that is fortunately quite easy, because if it wasn't easy, I wouldn't be getting it. Question 4, yo soy blank la fea. What first name fills in the blank in this title of the most widely adapted telenovela worldwide? To play this title character, Ana Maria Orozco wore thick-rimmed glasses, braces, and frizzy bangs. So fea means ugly. So I was like, what's something that like fits here if she's like the ugly? And I thought, is it like Ugly Betty? Because like I know that that's a thing. I couldn't have told you that it came from a telenovela if it did. So I might be completely off base, but like I'm just trying to think of like what's a character who's known as ugly, and like Ugly Betty, like first name. I feel like it just works. I don't know for sure, but it just kind of feels like it just makes too much sense for me to guess anything else. So yeah, gonna go with Ugly Betty. Question 5, who is the only glasses wearing member of the gang who rides around in a vehicle called the Mystery Machine? This is Velma Dinkler? Dinklage? Not Dinklage. Something like that. Dinkle? I'm not sure, honestly. Her first name is Velma. So that's all. I think that's all I need to know. Because that's how she's commonly known. And finally, question 6, give the first name of these 3, or any of these 3 bespectacled video game characters. I don't know 1 and 3. Number 2, I think, is Funky Kong, although it might be a different Kong, which would make me sad, but I think this is Funky Kong, who's a character who shows up in like Mario Kart and stuff. So I don't know much about video game stuff, but this is something that hopefully I have. It's an adjective, funky. I mean, it makes sense, but I might have the wrong Kong, which would be unfortunate. This is annoying. I feel like 2 is easy, 3 is easy, and 5 is easy. So the question is it worth enhancing 4? Because I feel like 4 is harder. 6 also is probably fairly easy. You just have to know one of the things. Oh my god. Do I enhance 4? I'm worried that I'm going to be wrong is the thing. Like, it makes sense, but like, what if it's not, you know? I don't think I have enough confidence to do that. Pommel Horse. Like, maybe you wouldn't pull the name of Pommel Horse. Versace and Velma feel really easy. I'm going to go with 2. This might be a terrible, terrible idea, but I can't convince myself that I'm correct on 4. Like, I just feel like I could be going down the wrong train of thought, so. Betty. Yeah, there you go. Millionaire Gordon Freeman. Funky Kong. Got it. Okay. I'm pretty sure it just said name the first name. I don't think I had to say Kong. I think I just had to say Funky. Hopefully, unless I misread the question, in which case that is tragic. But I think I actually got 5 out of 6 on the pop culture quiz, which is kind of huge. Pommel Horse might be like the easiest one on there, honestly. I don't know. But how to marry a... Oh, wait a second. Who wants to be a millionaire? That's what the game... That makes so much sense. Okay, that's kind of bad. Slumdog Millionaire, that also makes sense, although I've never seen that movie. Oh, man. Okay, honestly, that's probably not even that hard, but I could not think of that. That's tough. But Yo Soy Betty, La Fea, Ugly Betty. I mean, knowing how to translate the Spanish definitely like helped. And I feel like I probably should have just enhanced that. I mean, hindsight is 2020, but makes sense, doesn't it? And it's like that's probably the hardest question on the quiz. So that's a bit tough for me, but I decided to play it safe. Quiz 4. This one, I will leave a link to a Google Drive in the video description. Because these clips are like less than a second long, but I'm still worried that I'm going to get copyrighted for it somehow. So I think I'm just going to play it safe. So if you want to play along with the quiz, open the Google Drive link and listen to the clips yourselves. But basically the idea is you hear an incredibly short clip and you have to name the song. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. So the first one is The Final Countdown by Europe. Distinctive enough. I've heard it enough times to be like, yeah, this is definitely The Final Countdown, even if I only hear like a fifth of a second from it. Question 2 was the one that sounded like vaguely like a rap song. I'm gonna say Rap God. I don't really know how that song goes, other than like some of them, like but um, I think I'm just gonna say Rap God because I don't know. It sounded like it could be right. I'm just gonna name a random rap song. I mean, I'm not gonna get it right. I've never heard like the clip, but I don't know what's going on. Question 3. Similarly, I have no idea. The voice is kind of raspy, kind of gravelly, so I thought maybe it could be like Bob Dylan, for example. Um, I'm going to say, what was the one I decided to say? I mean, it didn't sound familiar to me at all, but I can't name a lot of Bob Dylan songs. I'm going to say, Don't Think Twice, It's All Right, I think was the one I decided to go for, although I don't even remember how the clip went, so honestly, I might even be misremembering which Dylan song I decided to to guess when I made that decision. But I'm pretty sure I'm wrong anyway, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. Question 4 sounds like a metal song, like a heavy metal kind of thing. As usual, no idea what's going on. I'm going to say Paranoid, which is a Black Sabbath song that I've never heard before, but I know is famous. The only metal songs I can think of are like Enter Sandman by Metallica and like Iron Man by Black Sabbath, but it didn't sound like those, so I have to guess a metal song that isn't one that I actually know. Question 5. This one I did know, and I don't remember what it was, which is a bit tragic. What was this question? Good Lord. I'm actually going to have to pause the video and listen to this song one more time so I can remember what it was. Right, so this one was So What by Pink. You can kind of hear the start to the like na 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 like na 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 na. You know the one, or you don't. It's a decent song, honestly. That was the type of thing that was, I don't know, on the radio a lot when I was a kid, like driving to school and stuff. Like that's the type of thing that would come on the radio. But I'm pretty sure it's called So What. So What? I Am a Rock Star. I don't think it's called Rockstar. I'm pretty sure the title is So What. But that's a bit tragic if I get that wrong. But yeah, answer here I think should be So What. And then finally, name either the composer or the director. So this is from. So I learned this very recently because I was doing catfishing, which is a Wikipedia category guessing game, probably a month or so ago. And there was a catfishing question on Ennio Morricone, who is an Italian composer of songs, apparently, which I didn't know. I didn't get it right. But Rasmus in the chat afterwards was like, yo, like, this is like the most iconic thing in maybe film history. You guys should know this. So I went ahead and gave it a listen, and sure enough, I absolutely had heard it. It was from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's like the whole like whatever. I can't really recreate it with my own voice, but it is definitely an iconic sequence, and I'm pretty sure that the composer of it was indeed Ennio Morricone. So I wouldn't have gotten this right about a month ago, but now I know it. So that's cool. And honestly, I think it's relatively difficult because, I mean, I don't know. Maybe the director's really easy. I have no idea who directed that movie, though. So I'm going to say the composer. I think he's the composer, not the director, at least. And yeah, I think Final Countdown's fairly easy. The rest of these, though, like, not that easy, honestly. I think I have to enhance 6. I think it's the toughest one that I don't have, or that I do have, rather. Um, but yeah, there are a few that I don't have because this is just, it's tough. I mean, there are just a few that I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why I said I don't know twice. All right. Gonna enhance this and submit this. Man, my words are just not coming out the way I want them to right now. We'll see. Sicko Mode by Travis Scott. Wait, that was Thriller by Michael Jackson? Yo, that's crazy. Okay, so it's the Final Countdown, So What, and Ennio Morricone, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So I was right about those. Thriller, man. Creep by Radiohead. Never heard that song before. I know it's famous, but I've never heard it. Sicko Mode by Travis Scott. I'm not even sure I've heard of that. I mean, I've heard people use the phrase sicko mode, but I didn't even realize that was a song. Never, ever getting that correct. Thriller by Michael Jackson. Man, I mean, that's tough. That was it was the one with the outro. Well, it sure wasn't Bob Dylan. I don't think I've heard the outro to that song. I feel like if there was a clip from like the chorus, I would have gotten it, but it's not a song I know that well. I know a couple Michael Jackson songs a little better than Thriller, but it's a bit of a skill issue on that one. But yeah, I just don't know my Michael Jackson well enough. So that is 3 out of 6 on what is honestly, I think, a pretty difficult quiz, but we'll see how it plays. Quiz 5 is Geography Before and After, the 3rd edition, which is great because I love these questions. They are super fun. Question 1, the large modern-day city at the eastern end of the historical region of Thrace and the modern-day country at the northern end of the historical region of Thrace. So, Thrace is like the little bit of Greece that kind of sticks out in the northeast. So I was thinking the city was going to be like Alexandropoli or something, which is like a Greek city in Thrace. But then I was like, okay, what's the modern day country at the northern end of Thrace? It's like probably Bulgaria. And then once I had that, I was like, well, what's something that could come before Bulgaria? Wait a second, it's just Istanbul, which makes sense because Istanbul is obviously a huge city and the land kind of ends there at the Bosphorus, so it makes sense that that's the sort of end of the historical region. Question 2, a volcano whose highest point is about 6,400 kilometers from Earth's center, and an archipelago whose highest point, Mount Pico, is the highest point in its country. So the first thing, the volcano that is famously the farthest point on the Earth's surface from the center is Mount Chimborazo because of the Earth's equatorial bulge. And then Mount Pico is the highest peak in the Azores and in all of Portugal. So this is the Azores. Yeah, honestly, like the first one could have been anything, but it's kind of like the only volcano that is actually famous for its distance from Earth's center is Chimborazo. So I figured that kind of has to be what's going on. Question 3, one of the 4 entities within India's longest named Union territory and the full name of a Russian city a few hundred kilometers northwest of Moscow and not a few hundred kilometers east. So this is... So the Indian Union territory is called Dadra and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu. And then the Russian city a few hundred kilometers northwest, I was thinking, is it St. Petersburg? Is it Tver? Is it Veliky Novgorod? There are a few cities there. And so I was like, well, what could go together there? So, like, is it Dadra? Is there a Russian city starting in, like, Dra or Ra? It doesn't work. Daman didn't work. Diu didn't work. Nagar Haveli made me think, well, Nagar Haveli ki Novgorod makes all too much sense. I think a few hundred kilometers checks out for the location of Veliky Novgorod. The other clue is saying it's Veliky, not Nizhny Novgorod, which is the one a few hundred kilometers east. And then Nagar Haveli is one of the 4 entities within that Union territory. So this should be right. Pretty tough one, though. Question 4, a trapezoidal tract of unclaimed land about 2,000 kilometers squared or square kilometers large, and the 8th most populous city in North Carolina, which shares its name with the most populous city of a few states further north. This one, so the trapezoidal tract is along the Egypt-Sudan border. There are a few sort of famous kind of terra nullius territories across the world that are like technically claimed by nobody. So the trapezoidal thing is called Bir Tawil. I also thought it could be like the Halaib Triangle, but first of all, the Halaib Triangle is a triangle, and second of all, it is, I think, claimed by both countries rather than neither. But Bir Tawil is the unclaimed land, and that would mean the next thing is Wilmington, North Carolina, and of course, Wilmington is also the largest city in Delaware. Question 5, the Gulf west of Hainan and a disputed island with about 100,000 people, 900 kilometers northeast of Hainan. So the Gulf west of Hainan is called the Gulf of Tonkin. I guess maybe I say Gulf of Tonkin. I mean, either way, shouldn't matter. But the Gulf of Tonkin is... there's a famous thing in the Vietnam War, like the Gulf of Tonkin, like, incident or whatever it was under LBJ, I think. I don't know my American history very well, but the Gulf of Tonkin is definitely that body of water to the west of Hainan. And then northeast of Hainan, along the Chinese coast, what's another disputed island that starts with what this ends with? Probably Kinmen, as in Kinmen County, which is administered by Taiwan, but claimed by the People's Republic of China. Question 6, a prefecture on Kyushu and the world's largest inland delta. The world's largest inland delta is the Okavango in Botswana. So what's something that ends with Oka or something along those lines? On Kyushu would be Fuku, Oka, Vango. Delta, I guess. And that should be 6 out of 6. And honestly, just really fun. I really enjoy this kind of quiz. And it's just fun to play hard geography questions. So... yeah, Full name of Russian city, a few hundred kilometers northwest. That is indeed Veliky Novgorod. I don't know what I'm saying. I mean, this is all right. As for what to enhance, I think probably 4. 3 is really hard too. But the thing about 3 is that it's like GeoGuessr. And I feel like within a GeoGuessr-oriented community, there will be people who know Dadra, Nagar Haveli, and Damanadiu, and there will be people who know Veliky Novgorod. However, the percentage of GeoGuessr people who know what Bir Tawil is, I think, will be lower. I might be wrong. And Wilmington is a bit easier. And if you can figure out Wilmington, you might be able to back solve it, but you still have to know what Bir Tawil is called. And in my opinion, that's probably tougher for GeoGuessr people, but I could be wrong. One of the two is definitely the hardest, but I just don't know which. So we will enhance that. Fukuoka Vango, Tonkin Men, Bioto Wilmington, Nagar Haveliki Novgorod, Chimbor Azores, and Istanbul, Bulgaria. That is 6 out of 6, and that was a good time. I always enjoy quizzes like that. So thank you to Looney for writing that one. Legend. Yeah, they're super, super fun quiz. So I'm going to have to say goodbye for now because it's instantaneous for you. I'm just going to edit it together, so I don't really know why I'm saying this. I do have to go right now, but I will be back in several hours to do quizzes 6 and 7, which I should just about have time to do before the deadline hits us. But yeah, so I'll see you guys in a second for quiz number 6. Right, I'm back, and it's quiz number 6, and it is a math quiz. So, part of why I had to pause was because I had to take a little more time to think about this stuff, but I think, hopefully, I figured it all out. So, we're going to start with question number 1. As usual with the math quizzes, we have 3 quizzes that are non-computational and 3 questions that are non-computational and 3 that are. First of all, non-computational. Number 1, the number system that we use is the decimal number system because we use 0 through 9. What is the name for the number system whose base is 3? So binary is base 2. Base 3 is called ternary. This is just, I don't know, it's the word for base 3. I don't know how else to explain it, but that's just what it is. Question 2, the shape called the 3-sphere is a 4-dimensional shape that is analogous to the sphere in 3 dimensions and the circle in 2 dimensions. The 3-sphere is the subject of which conjecture, which was solved in the early 2000s, that states that every simply connected closed 3 manifold is homeomorphic to the 3-sphere, etc., etc. So this, I believe, is the Poincaré conjecture. Poincaré, can't type accents as usual, but this is the thing that was famously solved. It was one of the 7 Millennium Prize problems that were presented at the start of the millennium, and this is the only one that has so far been proven. So yeah. Question 3, the graph of the function y equals x cubed has 180-degree rotational symmetry, meaning you can rotate the graph a half circle around the point 0, 0, and the result will be identical to the original function. Functions with this trait are described by which adjective, which can also apply to numbers, in which case the number 3 can be described by this adjective. A function that can be rotated 180 degrees about the origin and remain the same is called an odd function. Now we get to the computational stuff. So first of all, this problem, number 4, was kind of frustrating because I spent a while on this and there's probably an easier way to do it than I did. But it was also the most satisfying moment ever when I clocked it. So I think I figured it out, and this is a really interesting question. So let me take you through the whiteboard and try and explain how I thought about this question. So first of all, I had a few. Oh, I'm gonna have to hide my mic, my webcam here. Okay, so actually, you know what? What the heck? Let me just move it so you can still see me. I just moved the frame. You got to be kidding me. There we go. All right. So how did I think about this question here? Now, if I go back to the question itself. What is the probability that there is no stretch of 3 flips where a coin lands on the same side at any point during 10 flips, basically? So my first train of thought was, let me just take this case by case. Let me just say, okay, if the first flip is a head, then what happens? The second flip is either a head or a tail. If it's a head or a tail, then there's nothing wrong. You keep going. If it's a head and a head, then if you get a head, then you fail, etc. Now, the issue with this is that train of thought kind of didn't lead me anywhere because there are a lot of scenarios to consider, and it kind of got overwhelming very quickly. So my next thought was, okay, forget 10 flips. Let's consider the case of 3 flips. It's simpler. So if we flip the coin 3 times, I made a little tree here in the top left that you can see. We start with H, which is we flip heads. And by the way, I could just as equivalently have done a table with tails. I'm just saying it's heads without loss of generality. It doesn't really matter whether you choose heads or tails. If I do tails, it's going to be an identical tree. So if you start with a head, then you either get a head or a tail on the second flip. And then on the third flip, again, as you can see in the tree, you either get a head or a tail on each one. So basically, you end up with 4 possible scenarios if you start with a head. In 3 of them, you don't get 3 consecutive flips that are the same, so you're good. And in 1 of them, you do. So the odds of quote-unquote success here, the odds of not having a triple flip sequence are 3 and 4. So I continued thinking along this path of logic because I was like, okay, if I can do this for 3, I can do it for 4, I can do it for 5 before it gets out of hand, and I can try and find some kind of pattern, try and figure out what's going on. So if I do it for 4, you can see I made another tree for this, and you end up with 3 scenarios where you have a triple sequence of letters and 5 scenarios where you don't. So in this case, the probability of quote-unquote success is 5 and 8. So 3 out of 4 and then 5 out of 8. And again, if I did the same, it's technically you're doubling the top and the bottom, right? Technically, it's 6 out of 8 for the first one because you have to consider all the tails scenarios, but the tails tree is identical to the heads tree, so it doesn't really matter if I exclude the tails tree. Similarly, for this one, the second one, it's like there are 16 total scenarios, obviously, right? 2 to the 4th. But I'm only considering the head side because the tail side is the same. So, and thus the probability is the same. So, 3 out of 4 for the first one, 5 out of 8 for the second one. I didn't go ahead and draw this same diagram for when there were more because it would just be too cluttered, and I'm trying to draw this with a mouse, and it's a pain. But I found that what happens when you add a 5th flip is that you get 16 possible scenarios, of course. 32 if you count the tails, but 16 when you start with a head. And you're left with 8 scenarios that work and 8 scenarios that don't work. Now, the first thing I was doing was looking at the fractions for the x's rather than the checks, and I was looking at 1 over 4, 3 over 8, 8 out of 16, and I was not finding any kind of pattern with that. I was like, I don't know what's going on here. But I then shifted to looking at the check ratios instead. And what I noticed was that we have 3 out of 4, 5 out of 8, and then 8 out of 16. So I was looking at the denominators. Obviously, the denominators 4, 8, 16. These are just powers of 2. But I was like, is there some kind of pattern in the numerators here? And I looked at the numerators and I saw 3, 5, 8. I was like, that looks an awful lot like the Fibonacci sequence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test this for one more and see if it works. And sure enough, it works. The next numerator is 13, and the one after that is 21. So this was quite a bit of me just kind of brute forcing, checking each possible case just to add them up and verify for sure that this is actually what the pattern is. But for those of you unfamiliar, I should probably let you know. The Fibonacci sequence is 1, 1, 2, that's supposed to be a 3, 5, 8, 13, etc. So the idea behind the Fibonacci sequence is each term is the sum of the previous 2 terms. So 1 plus 1 equals 2, 1 plus 2 equals 3, 2 plus 3 equals 5, etc. So basically, I noticed that the numerators were the Fibonacci sequence, which is really cool, by the way. I don't know why exactly this is, and if somebody has a more rigorous explanation in the comments for why this works, I am very happy to hear it, because I find this really, really cool, and I love how math just like... You'll just be doing some math problem and you'll find some super elegant solution that just comes absolutely out of nowhere. And it's like the coolest thing about math, the way that this can happen. So I absolutely love the way that I solved this. And I don't know if there are other people who figured it out the same way or if my method was totally different. But that's another cool thing about math is that there's not always just one way to get to the answer. So anyway, if you flip the coin 3 times, your odds of success are 3 out of 4. If you flip the coin 4 times, you get 5 out of 8. 5 times, 8 out of 16, etc. So 6, you'll get 13 out of 32, 21 out of 64, 34 out of 128, 55 out of 256, and finally, for 10 flips, you get 89 out of 512. Now, of course, that's 178 out of 1024 because again, if you add the tails in, it's going to be an exact duplicate of the heads. But in lowest terms, that fraction goes down to 89 over 512. 89 is a prime number, so I'm pretty sure that that is fully reduced. And that is kind of how I thought through this problem. It was a lot of kind of brute force, a lot of checking case by case, because I wanted to be sure that what I was seeing was actually happening. And I tried a couple things before this that just weren't really working. Like I said, I kind of tried going through it case by case from the start, and it just got kind of ugly kind of quickly. So I was like, I have to just boil this down to be like, okay, forget 10 flips. What happens when we have 3 flips? What happens when we have 4 flips? What is the pattern here? How does this change as we go along? So I'm glad I looked at the ratios for the successes rather than the ratios for the failures, because that's what kind of revealed the Fibonacci sequence. So I'm pretty sure that this is how it works. So I'm going to say 89 out of 512 for my final answer. And I'm going to be really sad if this isn't right. But what is the probability that there is no stretch of 3 flips where the coin lands on the same side at any point? So again, all the X's in my diagram were times when this did happen. So the probability that it never happens is the probability that it's a check. And again, for 10 flips, that should be this fraction here. What is the ones digit of the exponential expression seen below? This one took a little bit of noodling, but it wasn't that bad. I was kind of thinking about, okay, like powers of 3, for example. 3, 9, 27, 81, 243. If you look at the ones digit of those, it goes from 3 to 7 to, sorry, my bad. It goes from 3 to 9 to 7 to 1 to 3 to 9 to 7 to 1 to 3. And it repeats if you keep taking powers. Works the same way with a number like 33. It has the same ones digit, so the ones digit is going to behave the same way when you take powers of it. So 33 to the power of 1 is going to end in a 3, of course. 33 squared is going to end in a 9. 33 cubed is going to end in a 7. To the 4th ends in a 1. And then to the 5th ends in a 3 again. So if you follow this pattern, you get that 33 to the 1 ends in a 3, 33 to the 5, to the 9, to the 13, etc. And then you keep going up by 4, you get 33 to the 33, also ends in a 3. So if we have that number, which ends in a 3, and we take that to the power of 33, the same exact thing is going to happen. The ones digit is going to behave the same way. That'll end in a 3, and so on and so forth. So the ones digit of the final number should be a 3. And finally, in the picture below, if the 3 black circles have a radius of 1, the radius of the blue circle can be written as a plus b root 3, where a and b are rational numbers. What is the value of a plus b? So the circles are all tangent to each other and tangent to the large circle as well. So this was kind of an interesting one. I'm going to go back here and try and illustrate this for you guys once more. So we said that the radius of the large circle is equal to a plus b root 3. The radius of each of the small circles is equal to 1. Now, my first instinct here was to draw a triangle between these circles here, which this is going to be an equilateral triangle with side lengths of 2 because the radii of the small circles are, of course, 1. So like this here is 1, this is 1, etc., right? So I was thinking, okay, like the radius of the entire circle, let me use another color for this, just for the sake of, it's kind of thick, but whatever. The radius of the entire circle, this here is 1, right? So basically, it's 1 plus everything from here down to the center of the circle is going to be the entire radius, okay? So I'm trying to think about, okay, what can I do to figure out the length of this little extra bit, the part that's a radius plus a little bit towards the center. So there's a root 3 in the original equation. I'm thinking, okay, what's going on with why is there a root 3? Does the root 3 have something to do with if you have a 30, 60, 90 triangle? That is not a 30, 60, 90 triangle, right? If we say that this is a 30-degree angle and this is a 60-degree angle, it's relatively well known that if this side is x, then this side here is x root 3, and then the hypotenuse of the triangle is 2x. So I was thinking, okay, can we make a 30, 60, 90 triangle here? Is that where the root 3 is going to come from? So I tried to do that, basically. So I thought to myself, okay, what happens when I take the center and I connect it with the rest of the sides of the triangle, what can we do with this? So each central angle in the triangle is going to be 120 here. But if I do something like, say, draw this little segment here, what I have now is I have a 30, 60, 90 triangle, right? This here is, of course, a right angle. And then since this is a 60-degree angle split into two, this is a 30-degree angle. And then this one in the middle is, of course, 60. So if our medium side is equal to 1, right, then using these ratios here, we can say that x root 3 is equal to 1 for some x. And, of course, that gives us that x equals 1 over the square root of 3. And if you simplify that to get the root out of the denominator by, multiplying it by root 3 over root 3, you end up with root 3 over 3. So what that tells me is that this little bold segment here in the middle is equal to root 3 over 3, which tells me that if that's x, then of course, if this is x, then our 2x is simply 2 root 3 over 3, which can, of course, equivalently be written as 2/3 times the square root of 3. Now, if our hypotenuse here is 2/3 root 3, that is exactly the length that we're looking for. So this length here from this point to the center of the circle, this is 2/3 root 3. Therefore, our radius in total is equal to the radius of the small circle, which is 1, plus that length. So this is equal to 1 plus 2/3 times the square root of 3. So A equals 1, B equals 2/3, and yeah, QED, basically. So that is the general thought process for this problem. So, I hope that you guys got something out of hearing me yap about these math problems. I mean, I find it really fun to work through these and explain them. I know that my explanations aren't perfect. It's not great that I'm having to use a mouse for this rather than a real writing utensil. It would be a little bit easier to depict things. But hopefully the thought process makes some sense. The probability, I just kind of had to dumb it down to okay, let's consider the simple cases and then generalize to the scarier cases. And then when it comes to the circle problem, it's really all about just kind of drawing lines and trying to get it into the form that you want. So it's we probably are dealing with 30, 60, 90 triangles because there's a root 3. So how can I use that to my advantage, basically? So 1 plus 2/3 root 3 hopefully should be the answer here. So the question asks, what is the value of a plus b? So if a is 1 and b is 2/3, then their sum would be 5/3. Now, as for what to enhance, it's honestly an interesting question because ternary is too easy, odd is too easy. 5, I think, is a little too easy. 6, I think, is easier than 4, so I'm not going to enhance 6. But the question is, do I enhance 4 or do I enhance 2? Because 2, I'm sure, is correct, and I don't think that this is common knowledge. I don't know how common it is. First of all, let me get my... There we go. I don't know how common it is to know what the Poincaré conjecture is. I think this is a pretty difficult question, and it's one that I'm sure that I have right. As far as number 4 goes, I'm reasonably confident that this is right, but there's a real chance that I made some mathematical error along the way. So it's a bit of a risk to enhance this. And I'm I want to do it anyway. I feel good about my thought process there. I feel like it made perfect sense. And the Fibonacci pattern was consistent to the point where it got to 21 and it was still working. So I figured that has to be it. Once again, let me know in the comments why it's the Fibonacci sequence, because I'm not 100% sure why that works, but it's beautiful and awesome. But I think I'm going to enhance number 4, and if it's not 89 over 512, I'm going to be very sad indeed. But I just feel pretty good about my process here. So let's go ahead and enhance 4, and we will see. But this is a super fun set of questions. The math quizzes are like my favorites of all. Like, they're so fun. All right, 89 over 512. Let's go. 5/3. 3 is correct. Odd, Poincaré, and ternary. 6 out of 6. Let's go. That was awesome. I love quizzes like that. All right. Finally, sorry for the math nerding, but you know, if you're here, you're probably interested in it in the first place. So there you go. Finally, quiz number 7. I can close this now, I guess. Back to normal things. This is a current events quiz. First of all, which legendary chess player died on February 27th of this year? He's most famous for playing Bobby Fischer in the 1972 World Chess Championship. This is Boris Spassky. I wrote a whole term paper on this chess match, actually, so I'm relatively familiar with it. But yeah, it's definitely Boris Spassky. Number 2, on March 4th, the trillion-ton iceberg that broke off from Antarctica in 2020 ran aground 90 kilometers off the coast of which island, the largest in its territory, which is east of the Falklands and belongs to Great Britain. This presumably is going to be South Georgia, with the territory, of course, being South Georgia and the South Sandwich Islands. Other territories around there. I mean, there's like Bouvet Island, but that doesn't belong to the UK anyway. And I don't think it's going to be like Tristan da Cunha or anything like that. So should be South Georgia. Question number 3. On March 15th, law enforcement officers allegedly used a sonic weapon on protesters during a protest of over 100,000 people in which country's capital? Anti-corruption protests have been going on for months. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I'm going to say Hungary because I know that Viktor Orban is notably just not great and corrupt, I think. So I think that's a reasonable guess, but I have not heard of this particular thing. So it's just a guess. I have no real idea, but I don't really pay attention to enough current events. Question 4. Throughout March, tensions have been rising between the U.S. and another country as Trump wants that country's leaders to sign what sort of agreement, which comes after Trump pulled out of a previous agreement of this type with the country in 2018. So this is Ukraine. This is the whole, like, Zelensky comes to the White House, doesn't say thank you, whatever the hell nonsense. I mean, I don't pay attention to politics because it is such a shit show, and I've got enough to worry about in my life. I don't need the news to depress me, so I actively try to avoid the news most of the time. But this is one of those things that was just kind of all over the place. So Zelensky visited the White House, and I believe what they were calling it was like a minerals deal, I think was what they were saying that he didn't want to sign. That's the thing that Trump was offering. So I believe it's called a minerals deal or something along those lines. I hope I'm not wrong, but I think that's what's going on. Question 5. On March 24th, Israeli citizens beat and abducted Hamdan Balal, a co-director of What 2024 documentary about efforts to eradicate a Palestinian village. Unfortunately, I don't know. This is probably something I should know, but yeah, I don't pay attention to a lot of current events, and I also don't pay attention to a lot of film, so this is not in my wheelhouse. Yeah, I don't even think, actually, when I was going through the questions, I don't even think I came up with a guess for this one, so I'm just going to take a second and try and come up with something that sounds relatively reasonable. Right, I'm going to say erasure because it sounds like a kind of a vague description of what's happening. But again, I'm not going to get this right, but it's not something I know. And finally, question 6, March 28th saw a magnitude 7.7 earthquake occur, with its epicenter in which country? Earthquake caused thousands of deaths in this country as well as some in neighboring countries. This, I believe, is Myanmar. I know that it affected Thailand because Rainbolt lives in Thailand, and he definitely felt the earthquake. So that was kind of a big deal, but I'm pretty sure it was centered in Myanmar, and that is where most of the destruction occurred. So I'm going to go ahead and say Myanmar. I think I probably have 4 out of 6 here, if anything, unless I get lucky on Hungary or somehow on the movie. I think I'll enhance 1, to be honest. I don't know how easy or hard Boris Spassky is, but I feel like if you don't pay attention to chess, you're probably not going to know that name. And I think that the other ones that I have are just a little bit more mainstream news. So I will go with 1, and we will submit. And we will see how I did with the current events, which is always a weak thing. Oh, it's a nuclear deal. Oh, is that different? Serbia, no other land, man. 3 out of 6 nuclear. I thought they were calling it a minerals deal. I thought that was the whole like. So I guess it's not the Zelensky thing. I guess it's something else. Iran. Yeah. Okay. I thought it was the Zelensky thing, which is definitely a mineral thing. But I think I had the wrong thing in the first place. So that's unfortunate. So it's going to be 3 out of 6. That's okay. I mean, I'm not great at current events, as you can see, but it could have been worse. One of them was just a geography question. One of them was chess, and one of them was just something I happened to know about. So we will take those. Not my finest performance, but it could have been worse. And that is going to do it for the week. Oh my gosh. Wow, they already... How did they already import my scores? Good lord. I submitted that quiz like a second ago. How did they even do that? Okay, I am not going to show the full standings because it's still 6 minutes to the deadline, so I'm just going to wait. And once we hit the deadline, then I will go over the final standings with you all. All right, so we have the final standings here. I will go ahead and hide my face cam so you can see. I finished in second place for the week, which is very, very good. Just about a point behind Saluna and, well, about 0 0.2 points ahead of Rasmus. So very tightly contested there. Did very well on the math quiz, which had a 19% conversion rate on the probability question. So very happy I was able to reason that one out. My enhancing was not optimal otherwise. Didn't enhance the right thing on the secret theme quiz. Didn't enhance the right thing on the Geo one. So presumably that was the Dadra or the Nagar Haveliki Novgorod one. But still decent overall. I enhanced what I was confident about and took a little bit of a risk on the math one, but I felt pretty good about it. So yeah, that was a fun week of quizzes as always. So thank you, of course, to Looney and Benny for the questions, and especially I really, really enjoyed the math quiz. I always do. I'm biased towards math quizzes, but thank you, Benny, for a very fun quiz and especially a couple of questions that really made me think but were just super cool. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed watching me yap for a while about math and other things. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again next week, which I don't know how far behind I am at the point that this is being uploaded, but hopefully it won't be too long after now. So thank you all for watching, and goodbye.